Good morning, students. In the last classes, as we were discussing about crystallography, various types of Bravais lattices, crystal systems and various types of imperfections, point defects, line defects, dislocations, grain boundaries, etc. And in the beginning I was discussing about bonding. So, that is the unit 1, and in the unit 2 consists of the phase equilibria. What is phase equilibria? You know very well about the chemical equilibrium. Chemical equilibrium means a chemical reaction where two elements or compounds react, give the new product. Say for example, when hydrogen and nitrogen reacts, we get ammonia. That is what a chemical equilibrium. And the chemical equilibrium is governed by law of mass action as well as Le-Chatelier's principle. Unlike chemical equilibrium, why I have said unlike? In the chemical equilibrium, we get entirely new product, where the individual reactants are not noticed. For example, in ammonia, we cannot see the hydrogen or we cannot see the nitrogen. But there is another equilibrium which is called physical equilibrium or phase equilibrium, where different components react to give the new phases. I will explain later what is the meaning of phases. And before going to phase equilibrium, let me discuss about what are the contents in this, and later detail about the various topics. So, in this unit we discuss about what are the various types of solid solutions, how various types of solid solutions are formed, what are the reasons for it, and we discuss about what is the phase rule, what are the components of phase rule, and what are the various phase reactions or phase equilibrium conditions, like we have one component system, two component system and various two component systems, etc. We will discuss in these things, which includes of course, in detail we will talk about copper nickel system, similarly bismuth cadmium system and iron carbide system. That is about the phase equilibrium, and at the end we will discuss about the application of phase equilibrium. Let me once again summarize. In this unit, we start with conditions for formation of solid solutions, Huomero-3 rule, phase rule and its components, one component system, two component system, and in detail about the two component system. At the end, we will discuss about the applications of phase rule. That is the in total the contents of this unit. Now, before going to in detail about the phase equilibrium, let me talk about some very important concept, what we call it Huomero-3 rule. Huomero-3 rule. So, for example, if you take, suppose if I want to mix, let us say gold and copper, or I want to mix iron and carbon to get alloys, or to get the extensive semiconductor, let us say I want to mix silicon and with let us say phosphorus or sulfur, etc. When you are mixing these elements to get different alloys or some other materials like extrinsic semiconductors, these two we get the alloys. So, before mixing these elements, we should know to what extent they are soluble, where solute atom is going into the solvent atom, that we should know it. So, to know that, we must understand an equation called Huomero-3 rules. Huomero-3 rule explains the conditions for the formation of solid solutions. I am telling solid solution. What is the meaning of solution? You know, a homogeneous mixture of two or more components, that is the solution. A homogeneous mixture of two or more components. But what is the meaning of solid solution? Solid solution means where the solvent is in the solid state at room temperature. Solid state at room temperature. That is called solid solution. All the alloys are solid solutions, because if you take, let us say, iron plus carbon, we get steel. We get steel. Steel is an alloy of carbon in iron. So here iron is considered as solvent, carbon is considered as a solute. So when you mix these two things to get a solution, where these carbon atoms are going into the lattice of iron, that is decided by Hume-Rothery rule. So there are certain conditions specified by Hume-Rothery. So the condition number 1, if we see, so condition number 1, if we see, suppose if I am mixing two elements A and I am mixing two elements A and B. So what is the condition number 1? The atomic radius of the solute and the solvent, that means A and B, must differ by not more than 15%. So that means radius of A and radius of B should not differ by more than 15%. So the difference of this radiance should not be more than 15%. So that suppose this is having, let us say, the radius of 0.3, this should be either 0.3, 0.25 or 0.75, like that things. So the difference between the two radii of component A and component B should not differ by more than 15%. So that is the condition number 1. And condition number 2 is solute and solvent atoms should have similar electronegativity. Similar electronegativity. You know meaning of electronegativity. Electronegativity means a tendency of attracting the electrons. So that tendency should be same for both the element A and B. Almost same it must be. That is the condition number 2. And condition number 3, both the elements should have same crystal structure. That means if the one is BCC, other is also must be BCC. If the one is FCC, other also must be FCC. That is what meaning of same crystal structure. So both the elements should have same crystal structure. That is the condition number 3. And condition number 4, if we see, the maximum solubility will occur when we have another condition is this condition, another condition is the valency. So both the elements should have same valency, means 1 1, 2 2 or 3 3. That is the valency. Okay. So I am repeating, there are 4 conditions. Condition number 1, solvent and solute atom should have the same crystal structure, same electronegativity and same valency. When all these 4 conditions are satisfied, we get complete solubility of one element in other. I am repeating, when all these 4 conditions are satisfied, we get a solution where both the elements are miscible in all the ratios. Suppose if we take 90% of one element, add 10% of other, we get an solution, a homogeneous solution. Suppose if we get 50% of this plus 50% of this, again we get it. Even you reverse it, 10% of this plus 90% of this, again we get. That means when all the 4 conditions are satisfied, we get a solid solution where one element is completely soluble in other element, vice versa. That is the Humer-Rothery things. So, now based on these things, if we see, so these are the main criteria of Humer-Rothery condition. Is it clear? One is talking about the radius, second is talking about the crystal structure, third is talking about electronegativity, fourth is talking about the valency. Okay? So, based on this Humer-Rothery rules, based on I said Humer-Rothery conditions, as I was talking about, we have 2 types of solid solutions, substitution solid solutions and interstitial solid solutions. So, the substitution solid solution is formed when Humer-Rothery conditions are satisfied. So, when the Humer-Rothery conditions are satisfied, we get a substitution solid solution, and if the Humer-Rothery conditions are not satisfied, we get the second, when not satisfied. So, when Humer-Rothery conditions are satisfied, we get a substitution solid solution. When the Humer-Rothery conditions are not satisfied, we get the interstitial solid solution. Okay? The first of all, what is substitution solid solution? What is interstitial solid solution? Let me tell you. Say for example, the substitution solid solution means when you mix 2 elements, the atoms of solute replace atoms of solvent. Say for example, if I have a solvent like this, so let us say this is the solvent atom. Let for example, you take gold. If you take gold like this, so let us say this is the lattice of gold. When you add copper to it, atoms of copper replace the gold atoms. So, replace the gold atom. So, it becomes like this. So, the atoms of copper replace the gold atoms. So, some of the gold atoms are replaced like this. So, that is what substitution. So, solvent atoms replace, solute atoms replace solvent atoms. So, that is what substitution solid solution. Solute atoms replace solvent atoms from the lattice position, that is called substitution solid solution. Okay? Now, what is interstitial solid solution? Interstitial solid solution means solute atoms cannot replace solvent atoms, but where they go, they occupy the interstitial voids. So, here in this case, solute atoms occupy interstitial voids. What is that meaning? Let me show diagrammatically. If I have a solvent like this, this is the lattice structure of solvent, If I take like this, let us say solvent, let us say it is iron. For example, if we take iron. So, this is the lattice of the solvent. When I add carbon to this, a solute. So, carbon and iron do not satisfy Humer-Rothery conditions. Hence, the carbon atoms occupy voids. So, where they sit? They sit like this. So, a carbon atom sit here, a carbon atom sit here, a carbon atom sit here. So, these are interstitial voids. These gaps are interstitial voids. So, the solute atoms occupying voids, that is called interstitial solute solution. So, interstitial solute solution is formed when solute atoms occupy interstitial voids of solvent lattice. So, that is the interstitial solute solution. So, for example, steel, an example for it, whereas substitution solute solution, extrinsic semiconductors, gold and copper alloy, gold and silver alloy, copper and nickel alloy. So, for this we have nickel copper, gold copper, and for this we have iron plus carbon. So, these are the solid solutions. Is it clear now? So, we have two types of solute solutions. So, the formation of these solute solutions is based on the Hume-Rothery conditions. Is it clear? Now, I will take up another important point, that is the voids. So, just now I was discussing about the interstitial voids. Okay? So, now if I draw figure once again, if I draw the figure once again for your reference, let us say if we take like this. So, I am telling this is void, 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 this is void. If all these voids are similar size, similar volume in all the lattices, that we should understand. They are not similar. So, if you see the crystal structures, various crystal structures, we have two types of voids. One type is tetrahedral, second type is octahedral. So, what is tetrahedral? If you see the tetrahedral void, suppose if I have atoms like this, if I have atoms like this, and now I will take these three atoms are there in one plane. If I keep the fourth atom on the above plane, so it will be like this. It will be like this. So, here black atoms are in one plane, this green is on another plane, right. So, can you imagine the gap present in these four atoms, four spheres? That is tetrahedral void. How it looks like? So, it looks like this, it looks like this. So, this is what we call it a tetrahedral void. So, this is a tetrahedral void. So, that is one type. The second one is octahedral. How the octahedral void looks like? So, I am drawing. Suppose, okay. Now, so far I was explaining tetrahedral voids. Now, let me explain you octahedral voids. Octahedral void is like this. Suppose if I have a plane of atoms like this, plane of atoms like this, one plane here, and I have second plane, another set of three atoms. How they, where they will? So, suppose the second plane will be like this. So, we have one atom here, the second atom is here, and third atom is here. So, total 6 atoms, but 3 in one plane, other 3 on next plane, but in a reverse way. Can you imagine at this junction of 6 spheres how void looks like? That is a octahedral void. It looks like this. So, we have, it will be like this, it will be like this. So, this is what we call it octahedral voids. So, in the crystal lattices, we have two types of voids. So, one is tetrahedral void, other is the octahedral void. So, when interstitial solute solutions are formed, the solute atoms, they occupy either this or these voids depending on the size. Is it clear? So, lattices have two types of voids, tetrahedral and octahedral, and solute atoms occupy these voids for the formation of interstitial solid solutions. That is the connection between these two. Is it clear? Right? Now, this is the, so Huomero 3 rule, types of solid solutions and types of voids. So, this is the background for the phase equilibrium, because in the phase equilibrium we will study the formation of various alloys and other things. So, during the formation of alloys, these conditions are applicable. Is it clear? So, that is about the basic conditions for alloy formation, right. So, next I will take up the first part of phase equilibrium, that is a phase rule. So, that is a phase rule. So, like law of mass action, which is the governing equation for the chemical equilibrium, phase rule is the governing equation for phase equilibrium or physical equilibrium. So, here what is the phase rule? So, this is the phase rule. For everything I am writing F is equal to C minus P plus 2. This is famous as Gibbs phase rule. So, this equation governs the all physical equilibrium. So, in this what we have, what is F? F stands for number of degrees of freedom, C stands for number of components, number of degrees of freedom, number of components, P stands for the phase. So, we have degrees of freedom, that is F, components, that is C, and phases, that is P. So, these three are included in the phase rule, or it is called Gibbs phase rule. First we will understand one by one before going to details. So, we will understand one by one. So, next slide I will show you. So, first I am talking about phase. So, in the phase rule I am keeping here, in the phase rule C have C minus P plus 2. In this I am talking about P, phase, I am talking about phase. Suppose if I take in a glass beaker, I take some water, in this I will put ice block. Say, let us say this is a ice block. So, this is water and this is a ice. You know that ice floats in the water because of its low density. Now, both, so water, this is water and we have ice block. We have ice block, ice. So, whether it is in ice, whether it is water, what is there? That is H2O only. This is the chemical species present in this, That is a chemical species, compound, both ice and water. Now, if I ask you, can you recognize the ice part and water part? What you say? It is possible. So, ice is clearly visible, water is also clearly visible. So, from this let me define what is phase. So, phase is physically distinct to. What is the meaning of physically distinct? We can see with our naked eye. That is what? Ice we are able to see, water we are able to see. That is what meaning of physically distinct to. Second, homogeneous. Say this total water is a homogeneous. There is no any discontinuity. There is no other thing. If I take water, ice is a block, it is a homogeneous. So, physically distinct, homogeneous. Other one is mechanically separable. What is the meaning? Suppose if I want to separate ice from water, what I can do? Simply I can pick up the ice, I can keep it outside. I can keep it outside. Simply by tilting the beaker, I can pour the water. It is a mechanical process. Lifting the ice, tilting the beaker, is a mechanical process. So, that is called phase. I am redefining. Phase is physically distinct, homogeneous, mechanically separable part of a system. What is the system? This whole thing is system. Container containing water, ice is the system. So, in this system, ice is physically distinct, homogeneous and mechanically separable. So, such parts are called phases of a system. So, that is about the phase. So, in this system we have two phases. So, solid phase is ice and liquid phase is water. So, we have two phases. Is it clear? So, that is about the phases. So, that is the thing. So, phase is physically distinct, homogeneous, mechanically separable part of the system is called the phase. Okay? So, phases may be anything. Friend, let me tell you very clearly the difference between phase and state. Let me clarify you. Suppose if I take in a container, I take the water and I put kerosene in the same container. Where it will go? Kerosene will go inside or it will be top. Because of the low density, kerosene will be at the top. So, we have kerosene layer. So, here these are both are in the liquid state. Kerosene is also in the liquid state, water is also in the liquid state, but these are two different phases. If you see the definition of phase, so kerosene is a physically distinct, water is physically distinct, this is homogeneous, we can easily separate both of them. So, both are in the same state, liquid state, but they are two different phases. So, that is the difference between phase and state. Is it clear? So, that is about the phase. So, next I will take about the component. The second one is the phase rule. I am keeping the phase rule here. So far I discussed about the phase. Let me discuss about the component. So, the component. So, when I was explaining the phase, I was talking about the H2O, both in ice, both in water. What we have? H2O only. So, the H2O is the component. So, what is the definition? Component is a chemical species. Component is a chemical species that exists in the phases, various phases. So, chemical constants which are required to express composition of each phase. So, in a simple way, let me define the component. Component is a chemical species by means of which we express the composition of a phase. I am repeating, component is a chemical constituent like H2O, right, which is required to express the composition of various phases, ice and water. What is the meaning of express? Suppose if I want to express the ice contains 100% H2O. Water also contains 100% H2O. That means Ice contains only one component, that is H2O. Water also contains only one component, that is H2O. So, in other way I will talk about, suppose if I take ice in equilibrium with water, in equilibrium with vapor. Suppose if I take this. So, this is solid phase, this is a liquid phase, this is a vapor phase. So, what is the chemical species present in all these three? That is H2O. So, that is what meaning. So, chemical species required to express the composition of each phase, express the composition of each phase. So, 100% H2O, 100% H2O, 100% H2O. Okay? So, that means this all these phases we are able to express in the form of only one component, that is H2O. So, that is what meaning of component. And of course, in the later stages we can also discuss the two components, three components, so on. So, for time being I am restricting to one component. Okay? So, component is the chemical species. Okay? Sometimes we have two components also in the things, in the same thing. For example, if we take, let us say, steel. Steel contains, let us say we have ferrite, we have austenite. Both are combination of iron plus carbon, iron plus carbon. So, to express this ferrite, we should know the percentage of iron, the percentage of carbon. To express the austenite, we must know the percentage of iron, percentage of carbon. So, that means to express the composition of austenite or ferrite, we need two chemical species, iron and carbon. That is why this is a two component system. Is it clear? That is what meaning of the component. Okay? So, third important is degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom, that is F. F is equal to C minus P plus 2. So, I am talking about degrees of freedom F. So, when we are talking about the equilibrium between phases, whether it is between ice and water, water and vapor, between austenite and ferrite, when you talk about the equilibrium between these things, there is a physical equilibrium, there are certain external factors. What are that certain external factors? One is the temperature, second is the pressure, third is the concentration. So, what is the influence of these factors on the equilibrium? So, when you change the temperature, how equilibrium changes? When you change the pressure, how equilibrium changes? When you change the concentration, how equilibrium changes? So, that is what we call a degrees of freedom. So, suppose if I want to fix the equilibrium between two phases, if I want to fix it. So, I must specify temperature or pressure or composition or concentration. So, unless until we know the values of these, we cannot fix the equilibrium. Sometimes we need one to be fixed, sometimes both temperature and pressure, sometimes pressure and concentration, like that. So, in order to fix the equilibrium between the phases, we must fix some variables, and that such variables are called degrees of freedom. So, what is the definition of degrees of freedom? Degrees of freedom is the independent variables which are needed to be fixed in order to express equilibrium between the phases. That is the degrees of freedom. Here one interesting thing is, suppose out of temperature, pressure, percentage, weight, that is the concentration. So, we have three values. Suppose sometimes equilibrium in such a way, all these values are 0. So, we do not have to fix anything, they are already fixed. That means F value is 0. So, that is what meaning of invariant system. What is the meaning of that? System is not depending on these variables. All the variables are fixed. That means f is equal 0. That is called invariant system. Sometimes one of these to be fixed. That is called univariant system. Either temperature or pressure or composition. One of these to be fixed. That is a univariant system. The third one is bivariant system. That means either temperature pressure or temperature weight percentage we have to fix. Two we have to fix. So, out of two variables, two we have to fix. That is why that is called a bivariant system. It means bivariant system is depending on two variables. Univariant system is depending on one variable. Invariant system does not depend on any variable. Or sometimes trivariant system means the system is depending on all three variables. So, if you want to define equilibrium, we need the values of temperature, values of pressure, the value of percentage composition. That is the trivariant system, right. Of course, to understand the trivariant system, we need three dimensional diagram, but normally we talk about invariant, univariant and bivariant systems. So, in case of univariant, system is independent of the variables. Univariant means system is depending on one variable. Bivariant means system is depending on two variables. That is the value of f changes depending on that. So, is it clear? So, these are the three terms in the phase rule: phase, component and degrees of freedom. Phase is homogeneous, physically distinct, mechanically separable part of system. Component is the chemical species which is necessary to express the composition of the phases, and degrees of freedom is the number of variables to be fixed in order to express the equilibrium between the phases. So, is it clear? These are the three terms present in the phase rule: phase, component and degrees of freedom. Is it clear? So, that is about the three terms in the phase rule, right. So, friends, I was talking about the phase rule, the terms involved in the phase rule. Okay. So, now I will take up the second one. Now, second one is the reduced phase rule. This equation f is called c minus p plus 2. So, say for example, if we take the system, suppose if the c is equal to 2, right. If I take f is equal to 0, what is the p value? So, I am substituting f is equal to 0, I want c is equal to 2 minus p plus 2. So, what is the value of p? Can you tell? So, f is equal to 0 means invariant system. So, you can tell the value of p. Or similarly, I take c is equal to 2, but p is equal to, let us say 1. Another, I want f value, f is equal to 2 minus 1 plus 2. This is the second. So, in this, what is the f value? F is equal to 3, f is equal to 3. So, that means to explain this condition, we need three variables. What are the three variables? Temperature, pressure and percentage weight or concentration. So, we need three variables, and normally in a two dimensional diagrams we have x axis and y axis. So, it is not possible to show the variation of three variables at a time. Hence, we have to fix one of the variable at constant value. We have to fix the, when the system is variant, that means F is equal to 3. To understand the whole system at different conditions, we have to understand the 3 variables, which may not be possible, right. So, in order to make explanation simple, we have to fix one of the variable at constant value, that is what meaning of fixing. So, normally in case of two component system, we come across this condition. So, when you take two component system, mostly as a mechanical engineering student, we discuss about the alloys and all of them are solids. So, since we are dealing with solids, out of 3 variables, temperature, pressure and percentage weight or composition, we can ignore one, that is the pressure term, because the vapor pressure of solid systems is very low. For example, you take this table, what is this vapor pressure? Very less. If you take this pen, its vapor pressure is very low. If you take a steel, its vapor pressure is very low. Even you change the temperature by 10 degrees, the vapor pressure will not change much. Even you change the percentage composition plus or minus 5 or 6, the vapor pressure will not change much. So, since the influence of vapor pressure is low, we can fix the pressure term at constant. So, when you are dealing two component systems, like alloys, which are solids at room temperature, the change in vapor pressure is very minimum when you change the temperature or composition. So, the vapor pressure change in the solid systems is minimum. We are fixing one of the variable, that is a pressure at constant value, that is normally we fix at 1 atmosphere or 760 mm. That is what we fix it, we ignore. So, we ignore the change in one of the degrees of freedom, that is the pressure. So, since we are fixing one value, so we cannot apply this equation C minus P plus 2 as it is to two component systems. Why we cannot apply? Because we are fixing one of the variables at constant value, hence we have to modify this equation. That is what modified equation is, this F is equal to C minus P plus 1. So, we have modified this equation to this. Why you have modified? Because we are fixing the pressure term at constant. That is why this modified phase rule is called reduced phase rule, and this is applicable for two component systems, mostly alloys. So, this is called reduced phase rule. So, whenever we want to understand the phase diagrams of two component systems, so we always take on one axis temperature, other axis we take the percentage weight, like this. We take the percentage weight on x axis and temperature on y axis, and we are fixing the pressure at constant. So, that is called the reduced phase rule. Okay? Thank you. So, what I have discussed so far, I discussed the Huomauer-Rothery rule, the conditions, types of solid solutions, types of voids present and phase rule equation, the terms present phase rule equation, phase, component, degrees of freedom, and finally, I discussed about the reduced phase rule. So, in the next class, I will continue with the one of the binary systems. Thank you very much.